Trump and Republicans have officially lost the messaging war on the ongoing government shutdown, and I've got two interviews this week. I'm joined by Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren to talk about why the shutdown is going poorly for the GOP. I'm Brian Tyler Cohen, and you're watching No Lie. We can definitively say by now that the ongoing government shutdown has proven a massive liability and a political loser for the GOP, and now we've got definitive proof. According to Kaiser Family Foundation polling, Americans want Congress to extend the expiring Affordable Care Act credits by a staggering 78 to 22% margin, meaning nearly 8 in 10 Americans side with the Democrats here, and the reason why is beyond simple. If Republicans get their way, the ACA subsidies will expire at the end of this year, and that means for the 24 million Americans who get their health care through the ACA marketplace, prices will increase up to 4 times what they are right now. 4 times more expensive. Senator Warnock has been sharing screen grabs from his constituents showing the difference between 2025 prices and 2026 prices. One tweet he shared shows $307 turning into $964. Another one shows $228 turning into $1,142. So unless your entire identity is just wrapped up in blindly supporting Trump's every whim or just trafficking in straight chaos, I cannot imagine who is out there rooting for healthcare prices to just surge through the roof. And so the Democrats' position here is this. They are using what little leverage they've got, knowing that Republicans need 7 Democratic votes in the Senate to force this issue if they want the government to reopen. Democrats will not budge unless the Republicans restore these ACA subsidies, which puts Republicans in a bad position for 2 reasons. First, the longer this shutdown goes on, the more people out there learn that this reason is why. Like the left, for once, is beating the right on messaging, probably because the right knows that their position on this issue sucks. And so every single day, more and more and more people out there are learning that this whole thing is about Republicans trying to raise healthcare prices and Democrats trying to keep them where they're at right now. And by the way, Republicans already poll completely underwater on healthcare, so this is just solidifying their already dismal branding on this issue. But the second reason that this is bad for the right is because in a normal world, Republicans would see how bad this is and they would cut bait. But this isn't a normal world. This is a world where Donald Trump views any capitulation as weakness. And there is nothing worse as far as he's concerned than being viewed as weak. And so the broader GOP is going to just dig in its heels because God forbid they admit fault. And in doing so, they're just prolonging this pain. Because every day, again, they allow this thing to continue is another day that more people learn that this whole thing is happening because the GOP isn't getting their wish of fucking over regular people for the crime of wanting affordable healthcare. So let's fast forward here to the possible solutions. How does this thing end? Frankly, as far as Republicans are concerned, the 2 options are bad and worse. So the bad option is that they let this thing drag out for a little bit before realizing that this is a losing battle and they cut their losses, which means they extend the existing ACA subsidies and healthcare stays largely the same. Either that's voted on immediately or they can guarantee some assurance that it's voted on before the end of this year, but functionally it means that the status quo remains in place. But the other option that's even worse for Republicans is if they opt not to play ball. So why is that worse? Because not only will they position themselves on the 80 side of this 80-20 issue, but think about the political consequences of letting those ACA subsidies lapse and going into an election year with 24 million Americans watching their healthcare premiums surge. Like, you don't have to be a political genius to understand why that would be, and I'm going to use this word advisedly, catastrophic for the right. And granted, that's not without some downside for the Democrats too, because if that second option happens, it will mean that the Democrats capitulated and allowed the government to reopen without holding the line on this issue. And I'm sorry, but that would be absolutely insane. Democrats already have a major issue looking weak, and if ever there was a time to stand strong and hold the line, it is on an issue that 78% of Americans agree with them on, including 92% of Democrats and 57% of Republicans. There is no reason to give in on this issue from a political perspective, a moral perspective, and a brand perspective. So I don't know exactly when this is going to be resolved, but I can say with certainty that having a Republican Party led by an obtuse man-child only suggests that they're going to dig in on the single most unpopular issue of this election cycle, all because Trump's ego is apparently more important to the broader GOP than the healthcare of tens of millions of Americans and his own party's re-election prospects, apparently. So this is going to be an interesting test for the rest of the Republican Party, who will watch their own brands tank thanks to Trump's singular defiance. Whether any of them grow enough of a spine even to help their own re-election prospects remains to be seen. But if the last decade has shown us anything, it's that we probably shouldn't expect too much pressure to come from a political party with the collective spine of a bowl of Jell-O. Next up are my interviews with Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren. No Lie is brought to you by Everyday Dose. Now look, everybody wants to be healthy, everybody has vitamins and supplements that they take to help aid them along the way, but those supplement stacks are expensive and they're hard to keep up with. Everyday Dose is affordable and covers all of your bases in a cup of coffee. It takes 30 seconds to make and you get coffee plus a bunch of supplements with vitamins, minerals, and amino acids. Everyday Dose is coffee plus benefits. It combines 100% Arabica coffee with powerful ingredients like lion's mane and chaga, collagen protein, and nootropics to fuel your brain, boost focus, and gives you clean, sustained energy all day long. No crash, no jitters, just clean, sustained energy. So there are two products here to highlight. There's Coffee Plus and there's Coffee Plus Bold. Coffee Plus is a mild roast. It's light and smooth, low acidity, which is easy on sensitive stomachs, gives you mellow energy. Coffee Plus Bold is a rich blend of medium roast 100% Arabica coffee. It's robust and full-bodied, yet smooth. It gives you an extra boost of energy. Both are 100% Arabica coffee, both have functional benefits, and both are mold-free. Everyday Dose does third-party testing. So get 45% off your first subscription order of 30 servings for Coffee Plus or Bold Plus. You'll also receive a starter kit with over $100 in free gifts, including a rechargeable frother and gunmetal serving spoon by going to everydaydose.com/BTC or entering BTC at checkout. You'll also get free gifts throughout the year. That's everydaydose.com/BTC for 45% off your first order. No Lie is brought to you by Armor Colostrum. So why are elite athletes, business moguls, and high performers using Armor Colostrum? Armor Colostrum is nature's first whole food with over 400 bioactive nutrients working at the cellular level to build lean muscle, accelerate recovery, and fuel performance, all without artificial stimulants or synthetic junk. Whether you're running a business, training hard, or just want an edge, Armor optimizes your body for peak output. Probiotics and other supplements are touted as a gut health solution, but most products in the market are dead before they even reach your gut. Armor Colostrum naturally fortifies your entire gut wall system and optimizes your whole body microbiome, which helps guard against irritants that can trigger digestive issues and compromise your immune system. Research has shown that colostrum also helps enhance nutrient absorption. Let Armor Colostrum help you reach your goals by promoting lean muscle building and fueling better performance and faster recovery. Colostrum bioactives have also been shown to reactivate hair follicle stem cells and activate collagen production, promoting hair growth and enhancing skin radiance. We've worked out a special offer for my audience. Receive 30% off your first subscription order. Go to armor.com/BTC or enter BTC to get 30% off your first subscription order. That's armra.com/BTC. No Lie is brought to you by Prize Picks. You and I make decisions every day, but on Prize Picks, being right can get you paid. Don't miss any of the excitement this season on Prize Picks, where it's good to be right. Now, I watch football every weekend, also every Thursday, every Monday, so as much football as I can possibly get. It's the one respite that I have from politics. Now with Prize Picks, I'm able to actually gamify, get paid in the event that I'm right with football. Prize Picks is simple to play. Just pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections. If you get your picks right, you could cash in. Prize Picks is also the best way to get action on sports in more than 40 states, including my home state of California, along with Texas and Georgia. Prize Picks puts their users first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. They offer Venmo, Apple Pay, MasterCard, and more for quick and easy deposits into your account this football season. Prize Picks also offers injury reboots. If one of your players leaves the game in the first half and doesn't return, Prize Picks won't count it as a loss. And if you're watching football right now, that feels like most of the league. Prize Picks invented the flex play, which means that you can still cash out if your lineup isn't perfect. You can double your money even if one of your picks doesn't hit. Prize Picks is the best way to win cash this football season. Which players are going off, which ones aren't. Make your picks in less than 60 seconds and turn your takes into cash all season long on Prize Picks. It's the best place to win cash while watching sports. Join millions of users and sign up today. Download the app today and use code BTC to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code BTC to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. It's good to be right. I'm joined now by Senator Bernie Sanders. Thanks so much for joining me.
My pleasure.
So I want to talk about the shutdown that we're in right now. Republicans are trying to make this about anything other than what it actually is about. They're trying to talk about immigrants. They're trying to talk about trans people. What is this shutdown at the end of the day ultimately about?
I think you hit the nail on the head. They are doing everything that they can to avoid the basic issue. And the basic issue is if the Republican legislation were passed, 15 million Americans would lose their health insurance. 15 million would lose their health insurance because of massive cuts to Medicaid and the Affordable Care Act. And Brian, there are studies out there from Yale and University of Pennsylvania that suggest that some 50,000 Americans every year would die unnecessarily, because that's what happens when you throw 15 million low-income and working-class people off their health care. That's number one. Number two, if the Republican bill goes through at a time when the cost of health care in America is outrageously high, premiums for 24 million Americans would double on average, sometimes more, sometimes less. Nobody in America can afford that. So those are some of the major issues that we're struggling with right now.
Republicans are trying to make this about immigrants using federal funds to get health care. So first and foremost, as clear as we can make this, is there any way that federal funds could subsidize, even to the tune of $1, health care for undocumented immigrants?
The law is very clear. Undocumented people cannot access Medicaid, Medicare, or the Affordable Care Act. End of discussion. So what Republicans are doing, and what demagogues always do, is they deflect attention from the real issue, which is that our healthcare system is broken and they're going to make it a lot worse, and then to finding some kind of politically weak minority of people whom you blame for all the problems facing society. Nothing new. That's what demagogues always do. They are lying. This bill will impact 24 million Americans, doubling their health insurance premiums.
Well, I guess in their effort to backtrack, we've seen some messaging now spearheaded by J.D. Vance that says, okay, well, actually, money is fungible. And so if you give any funding for anything earmarked for any federal program, because $1 is $1, because all money is green, how do we really know that any money that was supposed to go to one thing isn't ultimately going towards subsidizing undocumented immigrants' health care in state exchanges? And so I mean, just on a general sense, look, I'm under no illusion that Democrats are masters of messaging, but when you have the Republican vice president who is leaning on the argument that money is fungible, what does that say about the effectiveness of the message that they're trying to convey right now?
Look, they are lying all of the time. Look, you just put yourself in the place of a Republican member of Congress. You got to go home, and a constituent say, Mr. Congressman, why did you vote to double my health care premiums? I can't afford that. And we're hearing that we just sent out an email recently. We got hundreds and hundreds of people all over the country saying just that. They are on the defensive. What polling suggests is that the people are holding Republicans accountable for the shutdown for good reasons. So they're going to say anything, but I think they are on the ropes right now, and I think we got to remain strong.
Senator, can you explain a little bit of, I know that I'm asking you to do the impossible by getting into Republicans' heads, but what is going through their mind in terms of stripping healthcare away? This is, Republicans control the House, they control the Senate, they control the White House. The biggest, the states with the biggest enrollment in the Affordable Care Act over the last 5 years far and away have been Republican states. We're talking Tennessee, West Virginia, Texas. On average, the states that voted for Donald Trump in 2024 have seen a 157% increase in ACA enrollment. States that voted for Kamala Harris in 24 saw a 36% increase. So the new adoptees are largely in red states. This is going to hurt them. And so what's the mindset here for these Republicans who are trying their level best to make sure that this actually goes through?
Well, there are a couple of things. The major goal here, as part of Trump's big, beautiful bill, which is what we're talking about, was to give $1 trillion in tax breaks to the 1%. All right, that was the main thing. And that has to do with the corrupt campaign finance system. Elon Musk puts $290 million into Trump's campaign. Other billionaires put money into Trump's campaign, Republican campaigns. They want to be repaid. And the way you repay them is through massive tax breaks. So that's number one. Number two, it is no secret that Republicans do not like public insurance programs, right? Over the years, they've tried to privatize Social Security. They want to privatize Medicare. They want to privatize Medicaid. They want to privatize the Veterans Administration. So you got a twofer here. If you cut back on funding for Medicaid, you can give tax breaks to the very rich and move along toward the privatization of public health in general.
Right. That makes perfect sense. Is there no irony in the fact that really at the end of the day, what Democrats are trying to do right now is and I get the incentive for them to want to do this, to be able to offset some money for their tax cuts for millionaires and billionaires, and to be able to expedite the process of basically dismantling any government-run healthcare, because they want everything privatized, whether it's Medicare, Medicaid, the post office, the VA, you name it.
You got it.
But politically speaking, is there no irony in the fact that really what Democrats are looking to do is save Republicans from themselves? Because if we enter 2026 with healthcare premiums that double and triple, and you've got Republicans who control the House, control the Senate, and control the White House, they are going to be the ones that are largely to blame for what's happening. And so the Democrats are sticking their necks out to protect Republicans here, electorally speaking.
Well, I wouldn't look at it like that. I would say that if the Democrats cave now, they will look very bad going into 2026. I think you got to look at the totality of what's happening right now. So it is not just the healthcare crisis that the Republicans are making worse. It is the very rapid movement toward an authoritarian society that Trump is pushing every single day. So, by the way, as part of any agreement that would be reached, it's not only to roll back these rate increases, make sure that 15 million people don't lose their health insurance. It is to do, among other things, to not allow Trump's administration to deny funding that has already been appropriated by Congress. You've read recently, for example, they're holding back on billions and billions of dollars going to blue states. That is illegal. Yeah. It is outrageous. It is unconscionable. We got to deal with that reality right now. You're seeing ICE acting illegally all over this country in terms of how they're treating undocumented people and American citizens. You're seeing American military troops in cities all over this country. You're seeing Trump, the FCC guy, threatening people that if you say things that we don't like, we can pull your license. So how do you not respond to all of that stuff? Policy-wise, you have got to. What we are doing right now is not only fighting to protect healthcare for the American people, we are fighting to prevent this country to move toward totalitarianism. From a political point of view, if we were to fold now, how do you think people would feel going into the 2026 elections?
Right.
We're going to vote for the Democrats. You guys can't fight. This is the moment because we have leverage. How do we have leverage? Senate rules require 60 votes. What is happening now in an unprecedented way, Brian, I think a lot of people don't understand this, is that the Republicans, so when you need 60 votes, by definition, it has got to be bipartisan. The 53 Republicans, 47 people in the Democratic caucus, they've got to talk. Republicans are refusing to do that. So we got some leverage now. We got to utilize that leverage.
Senator, what incentive is there for Trump to even make a deal, knowing that by not making a deal, he gets to have what he wants on the healthcare front, which is to strip that healthcare away so that he can offset that money for tax cuts and, as you were saying before, exacerbate the demise of public healthcare.
Oh, he has a huge incentive.
Well, at the same time, he also benefits from the fact that now he views himself as unburdened, unleashed when it comes to being able to fire people, when it becomes Russ vote.
No. That's what they've been doing from day one. What do you think Doge was about? You didn't need a government shutdown to do that.
Yeah.
Look, they don't believe in the Constitution. They don't believe in the rule of law. So they do what they do with or without a government shutdown. What is Trump's incentive to reach an agreement? I will tell you very frankly. His Republicans, you are a Republican member of Congress. You're going home. You really want to defend a doubling of healthcare premiums? You really want to tell your constituents, I'm sorry that you lost your healthcare and you may die because you can't get to a doctor? I would not like to do that. That is a terrible political position to be in. So what all the polling suggests is people correctly are holding Republicans accountable. People do not want to see a doubling in the health insurance. They don't want to see 15 million people thrown off of healthcare or to give tax breaks to the billionaire class. So I think we are in a very, very strong position. And I hope very much the Democrats hold strong on this.
Can you talk for a moment about the depravity of the fact that, you know, these Republicans were so hell-bent on making sure that they don't have to take responsibility for their own policy decision. And so in order to kind of insulate themselves, they're saying, okay, you know what? It's not that, you know, we have a billionaire in Donald Trump who's trying to strip your healthcare away because he doesn't care about ACA subsidies. What you should really be worried about is this completely bogus, made-up notion that illegal brown people over here are why you're not getting your health care. And so as long as they can deflect the blame off of themselves onto people who, by the way, don't even benefit from the thing that they're claiming they benefit from, which is, you know, subsidized health care.
Taxes, by the way, for programs they can't benefit.
Correct.
Look, let's back it up here a little bit. Okay. Trump is a demagogue. Demagoguery, sadly, is an international phenomenon. It is not a new phenomenon. And what demagoguery is all about is exactly what you described. It is ignoring the major issues facing our society: income and wealth inequality, the march toward oligarchy, a collapsing healthcare system. Let's be clear, by the way, as somebody who strongly believes in Medicare for all, before Trump, before this whole business, the American healthcare system was a disaster. They are now taking it over the edge. Education system is in trouble. We got climate change out there. In other words, we got enormous crises facing this country and the world. What demagogues do is they find a minority group, politically powerless. They're the cause. Maybe it's the Jews, maybe it's the blacks, maybe it's Latinos, maybe it's the gays. You pick them. Different countries, different people. Same old bloody thing. You pick a helpless, politically powerless minority, you blame them for all of the problems facing society, and the rich get richer. And our job is to do exactly the opposite. Is to focus on the real issues facing this country, bring people together, not let Trump divide us up. But your point is very important, but I don't want you to think it's just Trump. This is what demagogues all over the world do. This is what demagogues historically have done. Pick on a helpless minority, trans people, undocumented people, God knows who people. I remember, 60, 70 years ago, they would tell the white workers in Mississippi, you blacks can't drink at a water fountain, right? Isn't that fantastic? Now, meanwhile, those white guys are being paid the lowest wages in the world.
Right.
Got it? Yeah, the focus, you can drink at a water fountain. You're better than a black guy who can't drink at a water fountain. That's what demagoguery is about.
Right. It's just pitting working class people against other working class people so that no one is paying attention to the millionaires and billionaires up top who are fucking everybody over.
And we're getting richer in who have never, ever had it so good. Here's the point. People on top, the Musks, the Bezos, the Zuckerbergs, they're making money hand over fist. You got Musk owning himself more wealth than the bottom 52% of American households. Do you hear much discussion about that?
Not at all.
You hear any discussion about that?
No,
nothing. It's the undocumented fault. So our job, focus on the real issues, bring people together, come up with real solutions, which in healthcare, to my mind, is Medicare for all, guarantee healthcare to all people as a human right, etc.
And last question, and I want to ask it on exactly that. For so long, we have relied on incremental changes to not just our healthcare system, but especially our healthcare system. And so do you think at this particular moment where we have seen the vulnerability of the healthcare system as it stands right now, we've seen the extent to which regular working class Americans are not benefiting from this system and in fact are getting screwed over by the system, do you think there would be an appetite to actually move toward Medicare for all as we head toward 2028?
Look, all right, take a deep breath. The answer is yes. Take a deep breath. Today, forget Trump. Forget the big, beautiful bill. Forget raising premiums by double. Forget throwing 15 million people off of healthcare. Before all of that, you got 85 million people uninsured or underinsured, right? We're paying the highest prices in the world by far, over $14,000 for a man, woman, and child. We don't have enough doctors, nurses, dentists, medical professionals in general. Our life expectancy is lower than any other major country. And if you're working class, you're living 6 years, 7 years shorter than the top 1%. Does that sound like a system that's working to you?
No, not particularly.
It's a totally broken system. And what we need is a simple system which guarantees health care to all people, expand Medicare to cover everybody, no out-of-pocket expenses. This is more or less what exists in every other major country on earth. We can do it as well.
Perfectly put. We'll leave it there. Senator Sanders, thank you for your clarity on this issue in particular, and thanks for taking the time today.
My pleasure. Keep up the good work. Take care.
I'm joined now by Senator Elizabeth Warren. Thanks so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me. Always good to see you.
So we are heading headfirst right now into the prospect of a government shutdown. So first and foremost, given the Democrats' limited leverage, can you talk about what they're seeking to do with what little leverage they do have as far as healthcare is concerned, as far as these ACA subsidies are concerned?
Okay, so you have to remember, we don't have much power, but we do have some power. And this particular sliver of leverage is that to get a budget passed or to get a so-called continuing resolution, another form of budget, short-term budget, passed takes 60 votes in the Senate. And the Republicans don't have 60 votes. So they got to come to the Democrats. What the Democrats are saying is if you want our votes, then you got to be willing to roll back some of those cuts to health care that you put in place, all by Republicans, no Democrats voted for it, that you put in place last spring. Because what's about to happen is about 15 million people are about to lose their access to health care. And pretty much everybody in the country who has health insurance is about to see their premiums go somewhere from 75% higher to doubling. And that's going to mean a lot of people in this country who suffer, who are making choices like, do I eat or do I have health insurance? It also has this horrible impact on the whole healthcare system. Rural hospitals are already starting to shut down because they can't handle the uncompensated care. Community health centers, they're starting to pull out. So that there will be virtually nobody who's not a billionaire who will not be affected by the health care cuts the Republicans have put in place. So all the Democrats are asking for is, if you want us to be a part of funding this government going forward, you got to give us, roll back some of that stuff you've done on health care, and you got to make some assurances here that you won't agree to it, and then you'll turn around a week from now and roll back again and just do what's called a rescission and take it all back again. So that's all we're looking for. We want to get rid of those healthcare cuts, and we want to make sure that the healthcare access sticks.
Why is that such a non-starter for Republicans, recognizing, and I think this is an important point to note, that as far as the ACA enrollment is concerned, the places where we've seen the biggest jump in ACA enrollment is mostly red states. We've seen Texas enrollment grow by 255%, and this is since 2020. Mississippi grow by 242%, Louisiana and West Virginia grow by 234%, Georgia by 227%, Tennessee by 221%. These are largely Republican states that are going to feel the brunt of this. So why not relent on this issue that is overwhelmingly going to help red states?
So I think there are two answers to this. One answer is just straightforward, and that is last spring when they were negotiating the deal, they wanted to do $1 trillion, that's with a T, $1 trillion in tax cuts for a handful of billionaires and multi-millionaires and billionaire corporations. And because they had other stuff running in there, they were going to run up the federal deficit by trillions more. So they looked around and they said, okay, where can we cut? And they decided the place they could cut was on healthcare.
Yeah.
So the money that's being taken out of the healthcare system, no surprise, is right at $1 trillion. And that's the money that's going over the billionaires. But I want to make a related point. It's definitely about the money, and they just didn't want to have to face the fact that they would be upping the deficit even more. So that was part of it. But you know what part of this is? It's a fundamental question of, do you want a government that works for people? And if you really think that the job of government is just to help out the billionaires and keep the masses quiet enough that they will work in your fulfillment centers and not and pave your roads and mow your lawns and not raise any problems. If you think that is the role of government, then the Trump administration is for you, because that's the direction they're pushing everything they can. But if you genuinely think that the role of government is to be on the side of people and to try to help build a safety net for folks, so that if your grandma outlives her savings and has to be in a nursing home, or your cousin has a baby that runs up $1 million in medical bills in the first month, or your neighbor gets hit by a bus and needs a wheelchair or a home health aide, that we can be there for each other, and government is the way to do that. So I think it's both things. They wanted to be able to give that money to the billionaires, but I think also they don't want government to work for families. And healthcare is a place, geez, what's so ironic here? The healthcare system's already broken, right? Already not working. And their answer is make it work less. Right. Make it more painful for people, make it more costly for people, make more people say government is not on my side. That's what the Republicans want.
Right. So they can use that as a pretext to say, this way we should privatize everything. We should privatize Social Security. We should privatize the post office, not have to pay for anything, not have to worry about spending federal revenues on these pesky little projects. This way we can keep giving ourselves tax cuts and not feel like we have to offset it with something.
That's right. That's right. There's a big plan here. Yep.
Trump will push back on this and has pushed back on this and has come out and said, you know what the Democrats want? They want healthcare for illegals. And so can I get a very clear explanation of the reality here in terms of what Democrats are pushing for with these ACA subsidies, and whether undocumented immigrants are even eligible for ACA subsidies?
Right. So can we just start with Trump's statement is a lie? Federal law is absolutely clear. The number of undocumented people here in the United States who are getting assistance from Medicaid or from the ACA is exactly zero. It is not legal right now. That's it. Nothing more. And every time Donald Trump tries to run this play, we should all just look up and say, liar, 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 because that's what's happening here. And it's one more effort to distract people. Understand this. Not everybody who has Medicaid actually realizes it's Medicaid. In different states, it's called different things. In Oklahoma, it's called Sooner Care. In Massachusetts, it's called Mass Health. I just learned that in Vermont, it's called Dr. Dinosaur. Go figure that one out. But the point is, it's called something different. It's still the same federal program. So there are a lot of folks who don't realize that this cut that is barreling toward them is actually going to hit them smack in the head, or hit people they love, people they care about smack in the head. And that's exactly what Donald Trump and the Republicans are counting on, that they're not going to have to pay a price. That, life will get tougher for you, but no one's ever going to be able to pin it on Trump and the Republicans.
How is this not a win-win for Trump? Because he's come out, and I'm going to throw to a clip right now of some of the things that he said Republicans are able to do if and when we do actually get to a shutdown.
Say about the state of the Democrat Party when they have a 33% favorability rating on average in recent months, and they're willing to shut down the government over healthcare.
They are shutting it down. We're not shutting it down. We don't want it to shut down because we have the greatest period of time ever. I told you, we have $17 trillion being invested. So the last person that wants it shut down is us. Now, with that being said, we can do things during the shutdown that are irreversible, that are bad for them and irreversible by them, like cutting vast numbers of people out, cutting things that they like, cutting programs that they like. And you all know Russell Vought. He's become very popular recently because he can trim the budget to a level that you couldn't do any other way. So they're taking a risk by having a shutdown because of the shutdown, we can do things medically and other ways, including benefits. We can cut large numbers of people out. We don't want to do that, but we don't want fraud, waste, and abuse. And, we're cutting that.
So right there, he's basically saying that a shutdown would enable him to make deeper cuts, to fire more people, to be more surgical in the ways that he wants to continue to gut the federal government. So on one hand, he notches a win if the government shuts down because there's no oversight, as if there's really any oversight now on him as it is, but there's no oversight from Congress or anybody else, and more power is consolidated into the executive branch. And on the flip side, I mean, like, he really doesn't, he doesn't benefit much by doing any of that. So what incentive is there for him to actually make a deal with the Democrats here if he will consolidate more power and notch more wins by virtue of it shutting down?
So that clip says everything you really need to know about Donald Trump, right? He's saying we can hurt even more people. And Democrats are the ones who don't want to hurt people. So we're going to hurt Democrats by hurting working people all across this country. And we got a whole lot of ways to do it. I got a couple of responses to that. The first one is they're already doing it. And there aren't stops on this government right now. Look, the courts are doing their best in some places, but so far the Supreme Court just seems to give a pass every time. But I see it exactly in reverse here. And that is, there comes a time you got to stand up and fight back. You just can't say anymore that we are going to lie down and let Donald Trump do whatever he wants.
Right.
Look, it's been 9 months now, and things have not gotten better. He never reached a point where he said, you know what, I got enough now. I have imposed enough pain on people. I have gotten enough crypto dollars. I have helped out my billionaire donors. There is no enough for this man. So this is the fight. This is the fight to pick right now. The fight over healthcare for millions of Americans. The fight that will touch every single person in our country, and to stand up and show that we can fight. Because here's the risk that Donald Trump runs. We stand up and fight back. We push back. We make clear that this is Donald Trump and the Senate Republicans and the House Republicans shutdown, and that everything that is not working because of them. All of a sudden, the world starts to look different. Because understand, we watch Donald Trump just go on and on, but he is not indifferent to hearing that people don't like what he's doing. Remember last April? He was doing all the tariff stuff, and all of a sudden the stock market went down, and he said, whoa, not so much, right? He decides he's going to go invade, and then, whoa, he gets pushed back, and he decides, maybe he's not going to Chicago. Maybe he's going to pull and try to do it another way. He is listening. So this is the moment. I know you hear this all the time. Call your senator, call your rep, call the White House, talk to each other, put it out online. But it really is. Because if we could come together and push back, if we can get a win here on healthcare, if we can show that we fight and that we know how to stick together, that we know how to bruise them over trying to impose this kind of pain on the American people, that's when we start to take our country back. That's when we start to make this democracy work again. That's when we start to put checks and balances back in place. Whatever you are most aggrieved about that Donald Trump has done, fighting back starts with coming together in a big joint fight and winning. And I think the healthcare fight is exactly the right place to do that.
And finally, let's end off with this. There is still a not insignificant, a non-zero faction of Democrats who are in support of a shutdown. I believe it's like a third of Democrats. 2/3 of Democrats are against the prospect of a shutdown. And I think that there are plenty of examples of why that would be so dangerous. But for those last third, can you talk about just some specific instances? And Trump alluded to this in the clip that I showed you before, but it's also, he's not a trustworthy narrator, and so he will just say whatever, errant synapse fires in his brain and words fall out of his face. What kind of power does he have in the event that a shutdown does occur and that Democrats, even from the minority, no longer have any say on anything because Congress is no longer in session?
So that's a really difficult question. And the reason it's difficult is we have no precedent here. Always before, we have had presidents who were willing to follow the law. We now have somebody who says, if he's got a hammer, he can break anything he wants.
Yeah.
And that Democrats have no power to stop him. Hell, Republicans have no power, it seems, to stop him. So we're living with a guy right now who thinks he can fire anybody. And a Supreme Court so far that when the cases have bubbled up to them have said, you know what, go ahead and fire those folks while we decide whether or not it's actually legal to do that. I have to say, I take his argument that he can do so much more as nothing more than an empty threat at this point. Donald Trump doesn't feel bound by the oversight of Democrats in Congress. He doesn't feel bound by the laws that are written on the books. He doesn't feel bound by the advice of his own lawyers, if there are any still around, who are willing to say to him, Mr. President, what you're doing here is not legal. He doesn't feel bound by any of that. I think that means it is time to wage a fight. And the fight has to be all of us. The fight has to be the giant pushback to say, Donald Trump, the people are not with you on this, and not with you by a little bit, not with you by a lot, because the people of America think that it is wrong to give $1 trillion in tax breaks to your billionaire friends and to take that money away from little babies who need health care and seniors who need nursing homes.
Yeah. That
we are willing to stand up and fight for our values. That's where the power is, and I think it's about time to show that to Donald Trump.
We'll leave it there. Senator Warren, thanks so much for the time.
You bet. So good to see you.
To listen to the audio version of this episode, click the link right here on the screen and make sure to subscribe. And of course, to see more of my content, that subscribe button's on the screen as well.